Trophies on the line, it's the third round of the Rugby Championship. Winner take all, do or die, this is the final stand. 2 matches remain. The All Blacks are on their way to Australia, and of course South Africa is hosting the Pumas. Let's take a look at these two teams and the matchups we have ahead. What is going on, everyone, and welcome back along to your home of rugby for another week's preview of the Rugby Championship. Of course, we've got these big 2 games coming up where the All Blacks could ultimately decide the fate of this tournament in the opening game on Saturday night. Of course, at the amazing MCG in Australia. It's sure to be a fantastic atmosphere at that matchup. But of course, if the Wallabies do pick up the win, there's always a chance that the Springboks could be the ones to take it when they face the Pumas later on Saturday evening, Sunday morning. Depending on where you are in the world, there's still a world of possibilities for where this trophy could end up. But let's have a look at the 2 games. We've got lineups, thanks Argentina, eventually announced 4 a.m. this morning. They decide to come out with their team 3 days later than the Springboks, but that's okay. We're getting it done here and now. But let's take a look. First up first, it's the All Blacks on the road to face the Wallabies. In Australia, MCG, it's sure to be a fantastic environment, a fantastic atmosphere, and really one of those monumental occasions you just really like to go to as a sports fan. As far as the spectacle of a match goes, I expect it's going to be a bit closer than most people are expecting. This is a Wallaby side that has been pounded from head to toe right from the outset. Thumped by the Springboks and then done in by a tenacious Pumas side in the last round as well. They've lost both of their games so far. They've not looked fantastic, but let's be honest, Eddie Jones is the media master. We're going to cover a little bit more about him in just a moment, but their lineup, as you'll see here on the screen, has undergone a number of changes from the last, both rounds really. They've really gone back to what I think is the core of the Wallabies team, and I quite like this Wallabies lineup. They've gone with the players that they've been building up. You know, the guys that they've had from a young age, they've kind of brought through the system and should be getting the rewards from their development right about now. It would be great if that was the case for them, wouldn't it? But sadly, they have kind of backed the cart up a little bit with especially the opening couple of rounds of their selections, and now they've reverted back to this. They should have been going with this sort of setup right from the outset. The guys that really have set this team forward over the last few years. So having a look at your team, what I'm really interested and really want to see is that 9-10-12. That's going to be the pivotal part of this matchup for the Wallabies. Tate McDermott comes in as scrum half, Carter Gordon's there at fly half, and an inside centre is Samu Kerevi. So you've got semi-experience, no experience, a lot of experience through your 9-10-12. Tate McDermott's going to add, I think, quite an important role to that halves combination. Yes, you've got Carter Gordon, who is inexperienced and kind of he knows what he's doing, but at this level, the world is a different place. So he's going to be under the pump right from the get-go. I look at who is inside him and outside him. He's going to have Tate McDermott, who's quite an electric, fiery little nugget, strong little nugget as well, I might add, at scrum half. And I think he's going to give a little extra second or two to Carter Gordon, because the defence of the All Blacks around the fringes will know that they cannot, and they should not, they've been burnt far too many times by this player, Tate McDermott, around the fringes. So they're going to need to stay on him there, which means you're only going to have that one-on-one defender should be running straight at Carter Gordon, because if you look outside him, you can't lay off Samu Kerevi either. If anything, he's the sort of player you need a couple of guys just looking over their shoulder, because he can break one-on-one tackles very, very easily. So all in all, what does that leave you? Well, Carter Gordon with a little bit more time, because he's got defence sucked in from his outside. He's got defence sucked in on his inside. That should give him less defence running at him at a rate of knots, less of those sort of reckless defenders who may or may not make their hit, but they know that they have cover behind them, that they can do something a bit outlandish. They're going to have to make sure they make their hits on him, because he's going to have time and space. And I think that's great for the Wallabies. Can he, and is he good enough to make that fully come into effect? The bad side is for him, the rest of the outside backs, he doesn't really have a backup if things go wrong for him. Callaway's not going to come in and help out too much at fly half. And of course, Karevi isn't going to do a job there either. Kicking-wise, he doesn't have too many other options. Pattaya can slap a boot around now and then, but of course, Callaway isn't going to do a huge amount of that either. So he's got a lot of pressure on him to actually perform in his core roles, which is really going to be interesting to see what he can figure out in this debut start. Of course, he's had a couple of opportunities off the bench and looked very good as well, so I expect high things from this youngster. On the bench for the Wallabies, they've got a lot of experienced players who have been starting the last couple of rounds. When you look at guys like Slipper, Arnold, Leota, White, Cooper, they've all been in and around the squad for the whole competition. A couple of injuries have meant replacements. Taliana Tupou's back, and Isaiah Parise is in the 23 now as well. And we do have Tom Hooper, who is starting at 7. Of course, no Fraser McWright now, and of course, Michael Hooper is out with the injury as well. So that will add a little bit more to whether this pack will actually be able to contend and give that 9-10-12 combination the ball that they actually want to play with. So there's a lot riding on youngsters here, and there's a lot riding on them getting things right. But this is what the Wallabies have built, and this is what they've developed over the last few years. So now's the time for them to actually show out and perform. I like this team. I don't like Andrew Callaway, but I think he's a fantastic test match level player. He performs very well at this level, and he just does basics right and doesn't make a huge amount of mistakes. That, at international level, is priceless. Do your role, don't stuff up, you're a champion. And I think he's a quality player. The wingers are proving very well. Nwanga Nitawazi and Korobeti doing very good work, scoring tries, doing what a good winger should. So you can be guaranteed you're going to get good return out of most of your back line. The forwards, can they stand up? Angus Bell, Ellen Alatoa, big pressure on those guys to perform as well. And that back row will have a lot of pressure. 2 good runners. And how's Tom Hooper going to go with the fetching skill? We will find out how his skill sets up against this different back row from the All Blacks. So, before we get on to this All Blacks team, Eddie Jones, what a fantastic coach he is. Maybe not in a coaching way, I can't speak on that, but as a media representative, he is fantastic. Some of the things he's come out and said, I have been noting down because he's just crazy. He's mad, and it's fantastic to watch and listen to. Right off the bat, after the second round of the competition, he came out to the media and said, the All Blacks need to watch out because the Wallabies are coming. They just got done by Argentina, and then the week before that got smoked by the Springboks, both of which the All Blacks have beaten. Where has he based this on? I don't understand. And then just recently, in the last day, he's come out and said there's nothing better than winning against New Zealand because you're feeling the whole country sinking. He says it's not just rugby that sinks, the country sinks, the whole economy goes down. He says you better call the Prime Minister and tell him that the economy is going to be dropping next week. What a crazy man. What a crazy man. This is coming from a team that is winless in the competition against a team that hasn't lost in the competition. He really does have a way with the media. But what he does here is he plants that seed of doubt in your mind and saying, why is he so confident? Why does he believe that his team is good enough to actually perform and beat us and beat this team and beat that team? That's what gets you straight away. Plant the seed of doubt and you're going a long way towards your team getting the victory. He did come out as well earlier and just telling the media that they're just fans with keyboards. Aren't we all? Aren't we all, Eddie? I mean, we all are. Fans, we got keyboards. We write shit. That's what we do. But anyway, we'll move on from Eddie Jones. Fantastic player he is. I just love what he says. And I just find it amazing how he doesn't get this all thrown back in his face after the result. Everyone's just like, Eddie, you're a good chuckle. What a man. And then move on to the next week. Whereas anyone else, this would come flying back in their face at a rate of knots. And you can imagine the karma pie would be attached up fully to that slap in the chops as well. Right. Let's move on to this All Blacks team. Now, there's not a huge amount to really pull apart on this game for the All Blacks because they're relatively unchanged. Sam Cane's got an injury, which some may be rejoicing about because it means Ardie Savea has picked up the captaincy. But on the flip side of that, it has been Dalton Papali'i who's coming into the team at 7. interested to see whether I'd go with Papali'i at 7 or they'd move Artie to 7 and go for Jacobson maybe at 8 instead. But has instead gone off the way of Xavier staying at 8, captaincy on his arm, Dalton at 7, Frizzell at 6, and the rest of the team is unchanged. That's very unlike this All Blacks team recently, that is for sure. There's a lot of change on the bench, however. Takiaho's still there, but offered Tuanga Fasi is coming for Tamati Williams. God damn it, Foster, what are you doing? Give Tamati some chances, give him some game time, man. I expect with the All Blacks win here this weekend, he will be fully in the fold for the return match in New Zealand. Nepo Laulala's alongside him. Sam Whitelock's back from injury, as is Anton Leonard-Brown, which is good to see those two guys returning back to the All Blacks fold. Luke Jacobson's in 20 and Caleb Clark. How he's still in the squad? I do not know. West 23. Just put anyone else in there. Mackenzie, maybe? I mean, I wouldn't mind that. Sean, that Sean guy. Yeah, why can't he play in there? Bizarre. Absolutely crazy stuff. But in 21, let's not talk about Caleb Clark because he is just a menace to any sort of structural thinking. 21 has Cam Roigard, or Cameron, as some of you may know him as well. He's set to line up for his debut match at scrum half. Aaron Smith obviously never really plays a full 80 unless he's at the Highlanders, who don't have any good backup. Roigard will come on later on. He should get, hopefully, a bit of time, seeing as where this match will be at that stage as to how long he will get. But yeah, good talent, exciting player. Excited to see him coming into the squad, and I hope he gets some minutes, gets some time to show his wares and what he can do at this sort of level. Much like the starting 15 for the All Blacks, I don't expect much to change from this side. They want to come out, they want to hit hard, they want to hit early. Expect them to try and replicate that opening 20 minutes versus the Springboks. Will they be allowed to? We will find out on Saturday night, but I expect them to try and get that tempo racing right from the outset, smoking it right from the start, and look to jet away from there. But don't expect the Wallabies to go away. I think they're a team that once they build into their fixture, they're always going to be lifted against the All Blacks as well. But whether they can pick up the win, well, win or victory, it's a win if you say them together. I highly doubt it. I think they'll come back late. They'll come back strong like they always do. They're a very strong finishing team against the All Blacks. If they can keep that up, they could be well on their way to making this a competitive matchup. It all depends how they start, because that is how the All Blacks are going to respond and how this match goes from the outset. I fully expect the All Blacks, they'll start strong. Wallabies will pull their way back, and the All Blacks will go tit for tat each way until we have a bit of a grandstand finish at the end. But I do expect the All Blacks to win this one. I think it'll be more than a try in it. 9 points in total, an All Blacks victory over the Wallabies in this third and final round. And ultimately, that'll cash in the Rugby Championship and the Bledisloe Cup as well, because 2 test series, 1 in the bag for the victors or the holders, means they keep it for another year. So 2 trophies, tick tick, move on. Now really focus on the Rugby World Cup. So that in turn makes game number 2 a little bit pointless because the title's already in the bag. That's not the case. No, not a chance. Now, it's not a normal Rugby Championship. There's much more to prove than just winning matches and just pulling up a title here. There's a World Cup to prepare for, and I think we've got 2 teams here who will be itching to do what they want to accomplish more than actually just pick up a W here. Both sides obviously gunning for the win, but I think for the Springboks, there's a big part of trying to establish what their best lineup is and who fits best with each other in the setup. For the Pumas, on the other hand, visiting this time at Ellis Park, Emirates Airline Park, whatever you want to call it, in Joburg, this is a game where they want to play an 80-minute performance because they have struggled and haven't done it all competition so far. And against the All Blacks, they started off strong and then fell asleep and ultimately woke up with about 5 minutes to play. Against the Wallabies, much the same. They were in it and out of it, in it, and then they died off, and then at the end, they're like, wow, we're still in this game. Time to wake up, and boomfa, they went and did that brilliantly as well. Today, or this weekend, I should say, they just want, I think, to get a full performance out. Now, they've made a number of changes. The Springboks as well have made a few changes to their side. So have a look at the home team first. And with their front row, it's very strong, isn't it? Kitchoff, Marks and Maholba. Wow, what a 1, 2 and 3 that is. Etzebeth still there. Aurier returns to partner him. Van Staden, De Toy and Vermeulen, the captain. Your 6, 7 and 8. New look to the halves, Grant Williams and Marnie Libok. But how about this back line? the two wingers, that's what I want to see. Excitement Central, Curtly Orense and Cheslin Colby. Wow, that's going to be electric. Villiers at the back. Jesse Creel comes into 13 to partner Damien Delendi in that midfield. They look really, really good. They look really exciting. The bench looks stacked as well because they just rotate these guys who are all phenomenal players. Mbanambi, Inikani, Kosh, Smith, Snyman, De Klerk, and Willemse. That's the reserves for South Africa. Like I've said on these videos all the way along, their squad is so deep and it's so strong. You could literally name anyone nearly from that squad and you'd probably say, that's not a bad team. That's a pretty good South African team. And that's the way they're tricking. That's the way they're going. And they are building very nicely for World Cup. Are they worried about what happened 2 weekends ago against the All Blacks? No, not a chance. What they would have taken from that is that they came back after that initial 20 minutes very, very well. Won the second half, performed nicely. They would have got massive information from their performance in terms of how players reacted, how they dealt with pressure, and how they come back from being against the grain. So there's a number of things here that they'll take positives from, which is going to be only good for the Springboks heading forward. They won't be too bothered, aside from, the little bit of, you lost to the All Blacks again, but there's one focus here, and no one cares who wins the Rugby Championship in a World Cup year. No one sits here in a few months' time and will be going, well, we didn't win the World Cup, but at least we won the Rugby Championship. Who says that? I'll tell you who. No one. No one at all. So don't even think about it. This is all about a Rugby World Cup, not a Rugby Championship. On the flip side of this for the Pumas, they've got a lot they need to work out, and they've made a number of changes to their side, which is going to be very interesting to see how these guys perform under the massive pressure of the Springboks, particularly in the pack, which is, I think, undergone less change than the back line, especially. The front row stayed the same. Gallo, Montoya, and Cadella are the 1, 2, and 3. Lucas Poulos comes in to partner Thomas Lavanini in the second row. So no room there for Alimano, who moves out. Matera, Grondona, and Gonzalez are the back row combination. Pretty consistent, pretty high level as far as Argentina goes. They've got a bit of depth in that sort of position, or those positions, and I think they've gone with a little bit of fresh legs, a little bit of rotation, but ultimately keeping the core of that team the same. The back line, however, this is where the changes come in. Now, they got Lautaro Bazinvelez starting at scrum half. What an amazing name that is. Carrera's still outside him at 10. The midfield, another change. De La Fuente's out in the bin. And it is Santiago Chacawares who comes in at 12. Lucio Cinti stays again. He's been very impressive throughout this competition as well, Cinti. So we've got to give him his props. He's at 13 once more. Warnemhoff on the left wing. Yes, he's back. He's in and out, and he's in and out, but this time he's off. And he's going to be on the 11 side. It's Mateo Carreras who switches from the 11 left wing to the right wing. And then Juan Cruz Malia comes in at fullback, meaning there's no place for Emiliano Boffelli, who's right out of the 23 altogether. Some interesting names on the bench. Ruiz in 16, Tite Shaparo still there, and Sclavi at 18. That's your front row replacements. Rubiolo in the second row with Facundo Issa in the back row replacement. Barchino moves out of the 15 into 21. Tomas Albanos is in 22. And of course, Matthias Moroni keeps his spot in 23. Few changes here in the Pumas, and I think it's good changes. A bit of experience, especially in that back line, with some players keeping consistency. Malia is very good. Imos very good. Chacawares is very good. I think about horses for courses here against playing with the South Africans. Chacawares is a bit more of a physical player going up against that midfield of Delendi and Creel. So we'll see how that kind of transfers to how the game plan will go. I'm interested to see the little scrum half of Bazinvelez in action here. I think, is he going to add a little bit more spark? I haven't seen enough of him to know how he's going to affect this game, but I always like Santiago Carreras. The big question mark a couple of years ago, putting him at 10, but man, he really is a fun player to watch. The pack battle is going to be where it's at, though. You saw a couple of those changes, Poulos especially in that second row. And who was the other one? That was it, pretty much. Poulos, the back row stayed the same. Gallo, Montoya, Cadella, So it's a consistent pack for this Pumas side, and I think if they're going to win anything out of this game, they've got to win it in the forwards first, and they've got a tough ask. The set piece is going to be very, very important, and of course, getting their own ball off those set pieces as well. Contesting, being a nuisance to the breakdown. Don't give the Springboks that quick ball that they like. So defensively, this is going to be just as important for the Pumas as offensively. If they come out of this losing, 21-10 or 24-10, convincingly losing, but actually defending well, playing with good structure, sort of controlling the speed of the game and controlling the way that the game is played, I think this will be a small victory for the Pumas moving forward into, of course, their very important World Cup year, where they've got very different opponents to what they're kind of facing up with now as well. So they've got a lot to look at and a lot to change and adapt to when they get to France in just, 6 weeks or so time now as well. So a lot to think about here for the Pumas. Ultimately, I think the Springboks will get the job done against the Pumas. That team is just fantastic. Going back to Marnie Libok, who I want to see perform again. I want to see what he can offer. We've seen Willemse was a bit underwhelming. I think Libok may be the man to do the job. I'm expecting big things from him and Grant Williams in that combination as well. I think those two guys could complement each other quite well. The exciting outside backs and, of course, the hard running, the hard work of that pack. I think that's going to be where the opening 20 minutes of this game goes. To the forwards, trying to assert their dominance and see who gets a little bit of a leg up before we see anything exciting from these back lines. But ultimately, Springboks to win this one, and I think it's going to be by 11 points. We'll go with 11, all the ones, 181, 11-point victory for the Springboks. Right, well, that about does us for this one. Easy to talk about these games for far too long, but I hope you've enjoyed a little look into it. Who do you think think is going to win these matches? Let me know in the comment section below. You think the Pumas are going to pick up a win? The Wallabies are going to keep this alive until the last part of the competition? Well, let me know what you think. But until next time, we'll have plenty more previews coming in the coming weeks as well. Plenty more rugby as well. We've got the Pacific Nations Cup happening. We'll see matches with Japan and Tonga, Samoa and Fiji. So make sure to keep those ones tuned in to your screens as well. And we'll have plenty of those coming up in future reviews and previews and informations about these videos. Until then, thanks for watching. The big games coming this weekend. Enjoy the rugby, and I'll see you all next time. Until then, take care.